Hey everybody, I'm Spencer Aronfeld and welcome to the Trust Me, I'm a Lawyer podcast. With me as always is my co-host, Nory Aronfeld, and executive producer. How you doing, Nory?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy Friday to you.
You too.
It's been a busy week of podcasting and music making. You've had some pretty impressive guests so far this week. Who have you had?
Not long ago we had Alex Hayes, who's immigration and criminal defense attorney.
Yeah, former public defender.
Right, and we talked to him about that. And before him, we had a number of other guests. Milena Baker, who talked with us about international human rights.
Very interesting.
Misogyny and feminism around the world, and especially during the coronavirus. And not long ago, we also had Anthony Genova, who spoke with us about child custody during the pandemic and how that's being manifested legislatively.
Very interesting. Now, if people are interested in being a guest on your podcast, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
The best way I would say is to DM us on Instagram with our Trust Me, I'm a Lawyer podcast account on the platform, or email us at trustmeimalawyerpodcast@gmail.com.
You know, I tried to email you at trustmeimalawyerpodcast@gmail.com and it bounced. Maybe I didn't spell it right.
Yeah, it's a complicated.
It is a very maybe you want to make it easier.
Okay, I'll think about that.
All right. Well, listen, today I am particularly excited about who our guest is because not only is he one of my favorite people on the entire planet, he is an extremely accomplished and well-respected international lawyer, and he is now the new president of Lawyers to the Rescue. Who's our guest today, Nory?
Santiago Cueto.
Santiago Cueto, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Spencer and Nory. Thank you for having me.
We're thrilled to have you. And should I refer to you as Santiago, or will you prefer Mr. President?
Oh, Santiago's fine.
He's also, I don't know if you know this, Nory, he is the founder and president of the Doral Bar Association. Yeah, so he's an amazing guy. And one more little fun fact about him that most people don't know. Do you know he's a twin?
I didn't know this.
Yeah, if you don't get enough of Santiago, there's actually another one out there somewhere who
I'm a fraternal twin. My twin brother is much taller and handsomer than me. They refer to us as the Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, where I'm the Danny DeVito of the bunch.
I don't think you can be any better.
Together, it'd be exactly the same thing.
Well, we're thrilled to have you on our podcast. Nory, you've got some questions to ask him about his newfound role as president of Lawyers to the Rescue?
Sure. I mean, first off, congratulations.
Congratulations, President.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I've been, I guess, a participant in LTR for as long as it's been alive because, of course, my father founded the organization, and it's always been something that I've held highly and think it's a wonderful thing.
You know, I'm sorry, Nory, to interrupt, but when we founded it, one of our very, very first participants from the beginning of time was Santiago. That's how I met him.
And I think that leads nicely into the general question of why are you so interested in being a part of LTR?
Great question.
Well, it was going back to what you guys just said. I remember it was at the old facility where it really, really looked like a homeless shelter. It was basically a couple of storefronts in downtown Miami kind of cobbled together. And to get from one part, you had to kind of crawl through kind of some debris, abandoned furniture, through the kitchen, out the back and in back into the buildings.
You literally had to step over homeless people.
That's right. It really, you knew where you were. The new facility, of course, is much grander and nicer. And it's not to be grander and nicer. It's to give the homeless a sense of dignity. For a lot of them, it's the nicest place they've ever been. Marble bathrooms, LCD TVs, a clean, safe environment. Many of them have never been in that kind of environment before. So it's not all for glitz and glamour, as nice as it is. There's a really a fundamental underlying meaning behind that, especially now people see where we came from originally.
Well, it's spectacular. And I always talk about you when I talk about Lawyers to the Rescue, how impressed I was that first time you showed up like in a $3,000 suit, rolled up your sleeves, took your jacket off, and started working in the kitchen in the sweltering heat of that homeless shelter. And I couldn't get you out of the kitchen. You were having such a good time preparing the food and serving the homeless. I was so touched by that. It made such an impression upon me. And it's wonderful to see this full arc from where you started as a volunteer to now having you as our president. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you, Spencer. And you were right there with me cooking.
Yeah.
I think we were aprons, and we spent quite a time there, and it was fun. I remember not wanting to leave with you.
I think in some ways, you know, of course, we've done some significant legal work there, but in some ways that was maybe some of the most rewarding time that we had.
It was.
Just
I
handing the
remember
food
those
to
days.
somebody. Well, listen, Santiago, we appreciate your work at Lawyers to the Rescue. And now as our president, as our leader, you're also a very well accomplished and respected international lawyer. And for people who are watching our podcast or listening to it on iTunes, tell people what international lawyers do and what your practice is like.
Well, international lawyer, it really has anything to do with an international transaction or an international case that for one reason or another touches the state of Florida. In your practice, for instance, that may be considered international law because the clauses in your cruise contracts include form selection clauses that mandate that any case filed against cruise lines take place in the Southern District of Florida.
Correct.
Now, many of these cases, these people, these plaintiffs are from different countries, different continents. So that for me makes it an international case. Because
well, I always feel close to you when those issues come up because I'm like, yeah, I am practicing to some degree international law myself.
You are. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do. If there's an international transaction, for instance, there was a company that wanted to import 1 million N95 masks from the country of Jordan, and they needed help, especially when this all got started in late March, to import that into the United States. So I helped them through that crisis to get these masks into the United States.
Oh,
that's an international transaction where they reached out to me because of my international experience. And given the environment, I was very, very happy to help in that regard.
You know, I wanted to ask you, how has your practice been affected by this pandemic? Because you look great.
Well, I think litigation, again, it continues to go forward on what we're having now is a Zoom meeting. So the courts of Miami and even the federal courts have enacted meetings either telephonically or by Zoom. So these cases continue to get forward. The thing that has been impacted right now are jury trials.
Yeah.
Those have been postponed since up till July. Even then, I don't foresee jury trials even past them because there needs to be a way to get people together to ensure their safety, not only for the jurors, but for the attorneys, the judges, and the court personnel. Until they figure that out, it's likely that jury trials will continue to be postponed.
You know, I was just thinking as you're saying that, because my fortunes are all being held up by this virus. If I should think about maybe electing to have a bench trial and dismissing my demand for a jury trial just to get my stuff resolved.
That's an option. Or even pre-trial, pre-litigation, people are now going into either private arbitration or private mediation to circumvent the litigation process, because understanding now it's very uncertain when they're going to pick up. And when they do pick up, there's such a backlog of cases that, it's going to be a case that was going to go to trial in July that I have, it's probably going to be postponed till September, October, November. And who knows how far beyond.
And then, of course, there's going to be this big backlog of all the other cases that were supposed to be heard before then. So,
that's
yeah,
correct.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know when we're ever going to get to a jury trial. Even it was hard enough to get to a jury trial before this happened.
That's true. That's true. I had a couple of cases continued before this all started.
Yeah. So Santiago, for folks out there who are unfamiliar with the board certification process, you're board certified in international law?
Yes, I am.
That's an extremely unique designation and recognition. What does that mean?
Well, it's basically passing another bar exam for your specific area. So I had to study specifically international litigation, international taxation, international transaction. And I felt like I was in law school. It was kind of fun. I felt like I was studying for the bar all over again. It was a sense of purpose I had, 3 or 4 months of just putting my head into the books and learning how to take these tests. And sure enough, I had to fly to Tampa, like the bar examinees need to do now, and take this test in a room full of people all day long. And not only do you have to pass the certification test, you also have to be pre-qualified in the sense that in your practice area, in mine, it was international law, I had to demonstrate that in the 3 previous years, I was heavily involved in international law. So I had to mention my cases, what they were about, to make sure that I indeed was practicing international law. Not only that, I
Okay.
also had to do CLEs
Ah,
up to the test. I had to have maybe 30 or so credits specifically in international law.
That's crazy.
So it's a very, very involved process.
I don't know if it's the same in international law as civil law, because I happen to be board certified in civil law, civil trial law. Did they interview your former opposition and judges?
They did. They had you fill out a form, and they get three or four recommendations from your friends, but then they ask your friends' friends for
Yeah.
recommendations, and your friends' friends' friends. So it goes back to the people that you least expect are giving an opinion about your character, your diligence, and how you are as an attorney. So they'll uncover any rocks to see who you really are.
Well, this gives you one of the unique positions in the large ocean of lawyers out there, the tens of thousands of us, that you can tell and the world and hold yourself out as a specialist in international law.
That's true. I think in my particular discipline right now, there's maybe 55 attorneys out of 90,000
Wow.
in the state of Florida who are board certified in international law. I don't know why more are. It really, if you're willing to go through the process, I think that more people could pass and become international board certified lawyers. They just don't take the time, or they're not willing to undergo the work that's required to do it. So I'm kind of disappointed that there's so few of us. Again, only 55 out of 90,000. I would like to see it, be upwards of a couple hundred, frankly.
So what's the typical Santiago Cueto international law client during this time? What kind of business are you taking in, and what kind of people are you helping?
Well, a lot of them are right now breach of contracts. As you can imagine, people aren't fulfilling their obligations under contracts because they don't have the money, or they're saying, you know what, I'd rather breach the contract, hold on to the money I do have, and take my chances. And some of my clients are willing to work it out. Others are wanting just to go straight to court. Of course, I'm mindful and telling them, listen, if we do go to court, given this environment, it's going to be at least a year or two until you see resolution if you win. Remember, this is a risk game. We don't know who the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are going to be and how they're going to respond to your case. I recommend doing a pre-litigation mediation, a private arbitration, or non-jury trial. Again, there's options.
Have you done any
Or simply
mediations
work it
yet?
out.
Have you done any virtual mediations yet?
I have, actually. The very first day when my office is closed on March 16th, we did a virtual mediation and the case was settled.
Oh, wonderful. I did one of the last in-person mediations, and I remember sitting way on one end of the room, and people were wearing masks before we really understood the risks associated with it. And there weren't really any easy ways of setting up a virtual mediation. But I remember that morning going, man, I don't know if this is the best idea to be stuck in a conference room in Kendall with a bunch of people for 8 hours.
Right. A bunch of strangers, you don't know where they've been. They don't know where you've been.
Right.
So, it's very difficult. And now we have some more understanding that, of course, the social distancing is vitally important. And that's why the courts are taking the precautions, notwithstanding the delay in litigation. It's more prudent to just take your time and come up with these solutions like Zoom. And even telephonic hearings work, frankly, for a lot of these things.
Well, we had on the podcast a week or two ago, Sarah Clasby. Talk about that, Nory.
Well, she is one of the most renowned mediators in Florida, and she just basically talked us through the Zoom process through mediation, from the perspective of a mediator.
Yeah,
which was super interesting. And I think she was also one of the first people to do it on Zoom.
She was.
So it was just interesting to hear it from her perspective.
So if you're watching this and you want to check out that podcast, we'll put a link below. Some key recommendations from the perspective of a mediator, how us lawyers and I guess the participants can best benefit from a virtual mediation.
Well, I got a quick tip. The other day I was in a hearing, and I was at opposing counsel, and opposing counsel, for whatever reason, in a Zoom hearing, chose to black himself out. I was appearing in a suit and tie, much like you are right now.
Yeah.
The judge was present on the phone. So I'm arguing this motion. The judge sees me, I see the judge, but then all you see is this black box arguing. And guess who won?
All right.
I did. I would like to think, I was a great arguer, but I think a lot of it had to do with just human intuition, that I form a bond with somebody I see rather than a voice coming from a black box. I don't think that made a good impression on the judge, that here I am, I chose to just literally roll out of bed, show up in a suit, and turn the camera on. That's how much work was required to do this. Whereas opposing counsel couldn't even do that. And so for everybody out there who's going to be in front of a judge or on a Zoom hearing now and in the future, because I think this is here to stay, always show up on camera with a suit and tie. It'll go very far in helping you win your case.
Great advice. Well, my executive producer here always makes sure that I come to these podcasts in a suit and tie. So although I am, to be full disclosure, wearing shorts.
Well, you're always in a suit and tie anyway.
That's true. I'm most comfortable in a suit and tie. I guess part of my fear is, at least when I'm starting to use this technology, that somehow I'm going to embarrass myself, that I'm going to get up or do something, or something's going to pass by in front of the camera. So I can understand to some degree why he might have been reluctant to turn the camera on.
Well, it gives a sense of authenticity, I think, when you're just, you are where you are and you're making the best of what you've got. And I think that, that holds a lot of sway with the judge.
Great advice, my friend. Now, if folks are interested in consulting with the great Santiago Cueto on an international law, transactional, or litigation issue, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, my new business card, I don't carry business cards anymore. I just say go to callsantiago.com and you'll find me.
It kind of sounds like Better Call Saul a little bit. Callsantiago.com. It's brilliant.
That's right. And that'll take you to my website, and you can get in touch with me there. My phone number, my email, everything is there.
And would you be willing to give viewers of this podcast an initial free consultation?
Sure, of course.
Wonderful. So Santiago Cueto, the new president of Lawyers to the Rescue, a board-certified international lawyer, and the president of the Doral Bar Association and founder. We are so grateful, and thank you for spending some time with us here today.
Oh, it's been a joy. Thanks for having me.
And stay safe, and send our love to your beautiful wife and your daughter.
You too.
Okay,
your family as well, Spencer.
Thank you
Bye,
so much.
Spencer. Thank you so much.
Santiago Cueto.